vocabulary in a math class is extremely important, especially when you get into the upper level mathematics. Because when you hear words like numerator and denominator, or students hear words like numerator and denominator, they need to understand what they mean. It does take time and direct teaching to help them understand these vocabulary words. The following games I've designed and I used in my classroom when I was teaching to help students learn and have a fun time at learning vocabulary in their math class. Cards are one of my favorite tools. Super easy to use, super cheap. Sometimes you need to get some that are thicker because sometimes they're thin enough you can see through, so just be aware of that. But on the unlined side, you write the vocabulary word that you're studying and make sure it's spelled correctly. On the lined side is where you write the definition and possibly some examples. So the game of hot seat is where the kid is sitting in front of your computer screen and behind them you have the word. And I used to use the index cards, the vocabulary index cards, put them underneath my camera, my document camera, and it would show in front of the whole class. Well, the kid that's in the hot seat, their back is to the screen. The panel is facing the screen and they see the word. They flip through their cards. They have to keep the vocabulary words face down. They flip through their cards, find the definition. They read the definition to the person in the hot seat. And the hot seat then has to try and answer it. The kids on the panel can only read the definition or an example. They cannot say the word or any part of the word. As soon as the person in the hot seat says it, I would flip and put another card under the screen. If the person in the hot seat can't remember the word, they can say pass. And then I will switch it out and I will put that card at the end of the deck and they'll get another chance later. Rotation setup. So once the person in the hot seat's turn was over, they took their seat in the audience and one of the panel members would come up and be in the hot seat. Then I would randomly choose somebody from the audience to come back up into the panel. I used index cards with students' names on it to be my random draw. I did not allow kids to say, I don't want to be a part of that. Everybody had to try. Even if they just sat there and said nothing, they had to do that. Because if you allow a student to say, no, I don't want to, then you end up with a bunch of students who will self-isolate and you'll have nobody that plays the game. So I say you just go up there and sit for 60 seconds. I found that everybody who sat in the hot seat, no one just sat there and did nothing. Everybody gave it a try. And even if they didn't get any words right, they gave it a try. And so on the way back to everybody's seat, whoever was in the hot seat got a round of applause because they gave it a chance. You can also have them go through and spell it. So if they've got the definitions down, you got a little more time, or they're struggling with spelling, then you put the word behind them on the screen. This way you don't have a panel. It's just the teacher and the person on the hot seat and everybody else's audience. You say spell translate. And then they spell translate if they get it correct. I have a little ding that I would do on my phone. I'd have little sound effects on my phone that I would give them. A ding or a buzz if they got it incorrect. And kids had a really good time. They learned to laugh at themselves. They learned to practice the words. They learned that even though they might not get it right the first time, they can always get it right on a second chance. Also on hot seat, I always let the first person to be in the hot seat be a volunteer. Because going first is probably the hardest position. I also allowed the person who went first to get a second chance because we kept score. However many words they got right in 60 seconds, that was their points. And if we happened to have very few words, I would just go through the deck again if they got to the bottom and see how many times they could go through each time that we did it. And so therefore the person who went first, I allowed them a second chance to go again at the end of the hour if we had time. Hold the card so that your hand covers the vocabulary word and your partner can't see it. The figure created after applying a transformation to the original figure. labeled using prime notation. Oh, which one is that? Image. IMAGE. That's right. Now it's your turn. So with the rotation, you're going to have kids step to their left. Column 1 steps to their left, and then column 2 also steps one person to their left. The odd man out will have to step in, and then you'll have a new odd man out if you have an odd number of students. You can repeat this game for as long as you wish, usually 10 to 15 minutes, or go through the cards a couple of times. I need the figure created after applying a transformation to the original figure, labeled using prime notation. I have image. I need a change in which the image is in a different location than the original. Once a student has read all of their cards, they stand up and say, I'm done. So as soon as they have read that card and said, you know, I have image, they set their card aside. Once they've gone through all of their cards, then they are actually the winner of the game. This encourages everybody to participate. And once a student has set a card aside, they can't pick it up and then say, I have that definition. So once it's laid aside on their desk, it's out of the game. This does work much better with smaller classes. Sometimes the teacher's going to have to referee as to who said it first, so you might have kids stand and then be like, yep, Johnny was first, or nope, Sally beat Johnny, sorry. Just to kind of keep the game from turning into a big free-for-all of everybody standing up and screaming a word. There are several games that kids can play with their index cards with friends, so it's not with the entire class, but just with their buddy. One of them is called Matching with Friends, but you do need 2 complete decks of vocabulary index cards. One of them will be spread out with the vocabulary words face up. One of them will be stacked over to the side with the definitions face up. Someone counts 3, 2, 1, go. The first person who sees the word that matches with the definition puts their finger on the word, and then they get that match. If there's some dispute as to whether or not they're right, then you guys can have a discussion with that and put the definition back in the mix. Another game that kids can play in a small group I call Game Show with Friends. One person volunteers to be the host and they have the deck of index cards. 2 or 3 other kids are their contestants and they sit facing the host. Then the host reads the definition. Our first definition is a change in which the image is either backward or upside down. The first contestant to correctly identify the definition gets that card. Oh, I know. Why, yes, Sheila, what do you think the answer is? Reflection. That's correct. You keep one host until you finished all of the cards and the definitions, and then the host and one of the contestants switches places. It's important that you teach students how to study on their own because many times they have no idea what that looks like. Read the definition. Try to say the word on the back side of the card and try to spell it. If you can't say it, then you can look at it and then you read the definition and say the word 3 times. That 3 times is the repetition that helps them to get the word into their memory. If they struggle with spelling, they spell it and then they look. If they spelled it wrong, they spell it while looking at it 3 times. Once again, the repetition is what gets it stuck in their head. If they're studying and they've got some cards that they know really well, then they can set those aside and work only on the ones that they're struggling with. That way you can have a more focused study time. And doing this just like 2 or 3 minutes at a time throughout the day can really help to improve their memory of what the definitions are for the vocabulary words. Thanks for watching and have a great time playing games in your math class.